Hi, I'm Marilyn, and I want to welcome you today to Exposing Grief. When we expose anything, it becomes less threatening. To expose loss and grief will provide us with some emotional control. In 2020, we laid the foundation for these conversations. Over 12 episodes, we explained how loss and grief can and does occur at any age or any stage in life. You can go back and listen to those foundational podcast episodes, or you can begin listening today as part of your personal journey to be more emotionally and mentally healthy. This journey is personal. You cannot force or coerce anyone to be more healthy, whether physically or emotionally. A person has to want to be healthy and be willing to do all the hard work in order to see results. You can be an encouragement, a friend who lets them know they can be successful. Have you ever found yourself crying over a news story about someone who has experienced great loss? Or have you ever felt an emotional impact when you hear that the leader of a nation has been assassinated? In these and similar cases, you may be experiencing emotional empathy. Empathy is when you identify in a very real way what someone else is going through, whether you have had a similar experience or not. Many of us are able to express sympathy for others who are experiencing loss and grief, but empathy goes far deeper. When someone is empathetic, it is almost as if the loss occurred in their own lives. There are those who can even be empathetic when they read fiction. In this instance, the empathetic person has to be very careful not to blur the lines between fantasy and reality. Many times a nation can have collective emotional empathy when their leader dies. It is not that most people knew the leader personally, but each person can relate to the feelings of sadness around them and may even go through the grieving process. If you feel this way in certain situations, do not let your feelings alarm you. Such a collective feeling of loss can be quite natural. Of course, as with any emotional encounter, you want to make certain that your emotions don't overwhelm you. When we get overwhelmed, we are in danger of losing self-control. Many times it may be difficult to find balance, but the effort to get there is worth it. Extremes in emotion can be unsettling and even frustrating. Many doctors, nurses, and other healthcare workers have emotional empathy, but of course without balance in this area, they would be unable to do their jobs effectively. It seems that people with emotional empathy do enjoy serving others. If you are one of those people, be certain to remember that you are important also. Self-care is vital. When you take care of yourself, you have more capacity to care for others. Even if you're not a particularly empathetic person, there can be times when you might experience emotional empathy. This can cause you some confusion because you may wonder why you are having feelings of loss and grief when no personal tragedy has occurred. When you are in tune with your mental well-being, you will be able to assess what is occurring and pinpoint the causes of your emotional distress. Once you identify the reason, then you're more able to cope and to move forward. We get stuck when we're unable to identify what is causing certain emotional feelings in our lives. It is my hope that you have someone that you can confide in and who can help you work through how you feel and what you are feeling. Maybe that person only reminds you that you already possess the necessary tools to work through what is emotionally bothering you. Sometimes when we're in the middle of an emotional event, we forget all about the tools we might have to get us through. It is always good to have someone who can remind us. Every person is different. You may find you are empathetic in some instances and not in others. That is perfectly fine. It is important to know yourself and your responses and not believe that you are obligated to explain why you feel a certain way. Tragedy of any kind can trigger empathetic feelings. This COVID pandemic has shown that each person is capable of empathy to some degree. Hopefully, COVID will soon be behind us, and then we will have a chance to evaluate in an objective way all we have experienced individually and collectively as a world affected by a common enemy. This will probably take years to uncover all the nuances of what we have felt, and even if there are any long-term effects. Again, I urge you to seek professional help if you are unable to manage your emotional responses on your own. These conversations about loss, grief, and emotional well-being are necessary and perhaps well overdue. Be a part of these important conversations. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to visit with you next time on Exposing Grief.